To a building is harm to a person.
Harm to a person's livelihood, of course it is.
Yeah, it also includes financial harm.
Person's livelihood, of course it is.
And even harm to a person doesn't come under common law.
Of course it harm to a person.
It comes under the Offences Against the Persons Act, 1861.
But it comes under.
But it's common law. It originally came under common law.
It comes under now legislation.
I think I got rid of my piece of sheet with the Magna Carta written on it. Oh, yeah. I might have it. No, I got rid of it. Oh, that's such a shame.
Common law is breach of the peace, is murder, and I think it's kidnapping.
No, it's harm.
It's harm, loss, fraud, or breach of the peace.
That's what's
Sorry?
Harm, loss, fraud, or breach of the peace.
Harm, what comes under common law?
Yes. Obviously, when there's a point of contention, as in a police officer saying one thing and it being contended by a civilian, should you not seek to...
I think the situation that we have is whether you accept the legislation of this land or you don't accept the legislation of this land, be it written or unwritten, I can enforce it on you.
No.
Yes, sir.
Well, you can enforce it on me, but you can't legally do so, because I haven't specified whether or not I'm sovereign or not.
Then we'll beg to differ.
Can I raise a point?
Go on, yeah.
Right, yeah. We've been suffering a point of contention. At no point so far have you sought to remedy that by actually inquiring about the law. You say one thing, I say another. You're assuming in that you're right and I'm wrong, and that is a false assumption, because it goes on the principle that for no particular reason you're right about the subject, and that for no particular reason I'm wrong about the subject, unless you have a specific reason in which you believe me to be wrong and you to be right. Do you?
I don't understand what you're saying.
Basically, you're saying you're completely disregarding the rules and regulations that state and guideline us as to how and why you're able to enforce this, and you're just saying we have to accept it, which isn't the case, because we're part of the public. Therefore, when we ask for you to clarify something, you should do your best to clarify.
And I have done. But the thing is,
lawfully, not just what you believe or your opinions. We want to see written law.
My belief and opinions have got absolutely nothing to do with what I am doing here.
But
my belief and opinions do not come into it at all.
Your opinion
can I respectfully disagree?
My powers as a police officer, my powers subjective to my rank as an inspector, and my directions given to me by my senior officers dictate what I do.
Yeah.
But also your
we
belief.
Want to know how that falls within the law.
Well,
because if you're acting unlawfully, we want to know.
All I can do is quote the legislation that I can use. And I have quoted that legislation.
But also we're requesting how you're able to enforce it.
How do you mean how? Well, if you don't comply, I can arrest.
You don't even have a truncheon, sir. To batter us.
Yeah, we understand. We understand. You said, yeah, if you don't comply to what I
suggest that I'm having quite a civil discussion with this person here, and you're coming with a silly comment like that?
Fair enough. Yeah.
Go on. I'm listening.
We're saying you've said a few. All right, cool, man. You said a few times that you have the power to arrest us if we don't comply.
Yes.
But what we're also saying is that lawfully we have the power to not comply. And we're saying, we're asking you to clarify for us exactly.
No. Well, I don't go that into depth of it. What happens
but it's the law. We should be going as into depth as possible.
No, because I think your interpretation of the law and my interpretation of the law.
So it is opinion.
Is different.
Yes.
So it is opinion.
And there is an arbiter.
Therefore, your belief comes into it.
In relation to this, and that is either the magistrate's court or the Crown,
who are also subject to their own.
And they
subjective interpretations.
Okay.
And it's as simple as that. If my interpretation of the law and what I do is different from your interpretation of the law and what you think you could do, certain elements of the law give me a power of arrest. I can invoke that power of arrest if I meet certain conditions. If I do invoke that power of arrest and you disagree with me, the law of the land allows you to say, I am not guilty of this offence, therefore we go to an arbiter. And in this case, the arbiter would be are to the magistrates' court or the Crown.
So you're saying the
If it's the magistrates' court,
Yes,
the magistrates will make
I would have
the
thought
decision there.
it would have been a jury of 12.
If
Yeah,
it's the
yeah.
Crown Court, it will be 12
Yeah,
of your
because
peers.
obviously
And
in
it's
under common law, it's
So
your peers who judge you.
We can't discuss points of contention. That only happens after.
Well,
the
there
race.
isn't. Yes, we can discuss points of
But it
contention.
doesn't- it won't
but
bring
we
about
discuss
any-
them-
any sort of-
we discuss them in front of the whichever court it
Judge.
goes
So,
in front.
so you'd have to be arrested for us to go through the
So
whole process, arrive in court, and then discuss.
Okay,
yes.
I'm just going to point out a point that you should seriously consider. It is fraudulent, okay? It is fraudulent, which is a crime, to say that you can enforce legislator and law without knowing the specific thing. You cannot enforce it without knowing it. So you cannot
And I
say,
do know my legislation.
do you know every single piece of legislation?
Well, nobody knows every single piece
That's
of
my
legislation.
point, sir.
Nobody knows even the lawyers don't know every single piece
That's
of
my-
legislation.
as
They
you can see-
research the legislation at the time.
As you can see,
But in
that's a
rela-
valid
but
point
in relation
when...
In relation to the legislation that we do today, I carry a little booklet which states the legislation. It's the Public Order Aid Memoir.
Does that state the law?
It states the legislation.
Does it state the
Now-
common law?
Well, you think it states breach of the peace?
So it demonstrates common
It
law in it.
states
Yeah.
legislation.
So-
What your view of legislation is.
On what premises do you have any knowledge or point of reference when you're dealing with sovereigns who are not subject to
I don't
legislation?
understand what the word sovereign is.
As I stated before,
Flesh and blood, not a name, not a legal fiction.
I'm sorry.
It's not something that I've been made aware of.
It's
It's possibly something that you have arguably invented yourself
No.
for your own ends.
But can
it could
we-
quite
this
easily
is-
be.
this is-
Okay,
this is-
search
Okay,
yourself
well,
when
it
you get home.
could be. It's something that you discovered that you're utilising for your own ends.
Yeah, that's
yes, yes.
Research it when
So
you get
why
home,
is then?
because you ought to know.
So why is there
And then your
the?
interpretation of what that says, and all English law is subject to interpretation,
Yeah,
could be
yeah.
different from my interpretation.
Yeah, certainly.
You utilise the interpretation for your own ends, and I would possibly use that interpretation
But it's not
for
for
another
my
ends.
ends,
Well,
it's
for your
for
own
our
subject, yes.
ends.
But
But
when I
that
say
our
yours,
includes you.
well, does it? Because
It
I
does.
may well interpret it something differently.
Well, at the end of the day,
For which
Just to
we are
get back on the
using
book
it.
and ask you one quick question. So we've established that you can enforce statute and legislation and whatever you want, and the point of contention and the discussion will happen in court. Right. Is this a public highway or is this American soil?
Well, and under terrorism legislation, I can close this road.
which specific legislation?
I don't know it.
terrorism
Yes.
legislation.
Because
Peaceful
as you can see, it's an
But-
obvious
but
concern
but
for
the
us
police
if there are
officers can
terrorists
close-
among
the
us.
police
We
officers
may
can-
want to know to protect ourselves.
And we can also utilise it under the Vienna Convention,
Can you
which is to
specifically
protect.
say?
Well, the Vienna Convention dictates that we must protect embassies. Embassies.
Yep. And at which point have you been made aware of something that we haven't? Because as you can see, we're all we're literally all peaceful protesters.
I'm not
peacefully
disagreeing with that,
protesting
but
about
I
peaceful
do not know-
protesters
I do not
being
know
assaulted
that.
by the police.
I do not
So you
know
can
that.
obviously see.
I
the,
have been at lots and lots of protests where I've been seriously assaulted myself. So I do not know. But arguably, we deal with things in worst case scenario,
yeah. Do you not see that as
which is why I'm wearing the
a
body
spy-
armor today. So,
The proper Kevlar got him.
so yes, yes.
obviously you can see that the nature of dealing with things as if they're extreme
It's
perpetuates
preventative.
to extremity
It's
itself.
preventative. It's either reactivity. We either react to a situation and we're not allowed to do certain things until something happens, or we prevent.
So you do
And we
operate
can-
on a basis of pre-crime, and people
Well,
can get arrested
yes,
for
because
pre-crime.
if you look at the first things are the prevention of crime.
But can I raise a point? If you operate on the established notion that there is a chance of pre-crime occurring,
Sorry?
if you operate on the established notion that there is a chance of pre-crime occurring, and you want to prevent that crime, why are you not also treating your own officers like that? Because pre-crime, yeah, affects everyone. Because anyone can commit a crime. So therefore you should
My officers-
treat everyone equally as we are
my
all
officers
equal
act
under
a
the eyes of the
discipline.
law.
My officers act under a discipline code.
Yep,
You don't act. I don't know that you act under.
I don't know that you do.
Yeah, but that discipline code
Well,
don't mean anything
you-
because I've
you
seen your
should
officers
do.
break the law.
You should do.
You should do
You should
because
do.
you know that I am part of a managed organisation.
Well, let me show
And a
you this.
disciplined organisation.
Can you read that?
No, I can't.
That says Occupy London.
Yes.
So Occupy London has a set of, I think it's 9. Yeah, 9 points. That establishes the
But are
kind
they
of general
setting-
ideas.
Are they setting legislation?
Between us,
They don't need to
Are
be.
they setting legislation?
it's a social contract.
It's yeah,
Yeah, well, ours is a legislative contract.
yeah, but it's also essentially it's a social contract because
Sorry?
you have to consent to be governed. So it's a kind of similar thing, if you see what I mean. It's just a piece of paper with writing on it.
Yeah, but I don't think you identify the importance of pieces of paper with writing on it. As
I
much as
identify the importance of acting in a
you. And you
rational
possibly
and moral manner.
Are utilising that lack of importance of an excuse for you not complying with
May I
those
bring up a
pieces
point?
of paper.
In Nazi Germany, there were many pieces of paper with
Don't
important.
compare us to Nazi Germany.
Why not?
Because we're nothing.
But their
I am-
legislation
I find
made-
that offensive.
their
I find it
legislation
offensive.
made what they were doing right. That's the only thing that we're trying to get across. Their legislation said that what they were doing was
Turn the light out. If you're going to shine it in my face, he's filming me. He's filming me on the phone. I don't mind being filmed, but I'm
No,
not
so
going to light shine.
I wasn't trying to put it in your face. I thought I was just filming behind you. I apologise for that.
Can I raise my point?
No, I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
The only thing that separates two pieces of paper is the reasoning, the rationale, and the morality behind it. If you say that you're acting on the basis that a piece of paper says one thing, you're not acting with rational consideration of the matter. You're acting on the basis that this piece of paper says one thing, which is what the Nazis did. That's my point of that. I was linking the two, because at the end of the day, if you're not acting in a rational and moral manner, I can't give you any kind of respect or honour, because
At the end of the day, successive governments, voted in governments, have penned legislation. That legislation has been voted in by the people that we collectively have voted in. And I would argue that is subjective for any written legislation.
would you argue that it is moral or rational for a group of people to inflict their will on another group of
Morality is
people?
subjective again.
Yes.
Morality is
Yes,
subjective.
I'm asking for your personal opinion.
You're not getting my personal opinion.
Is there any
Because my
particular
personal opinion is subjective to me when I'm at home with my wife and kids, or if I'm out having a pint. At the moment, I'm wearing
So
this
do you
uniform
not
for police officers.
use your personal opinion to
I
argue
know
whether...
that, but no, because at the moment I'm a police officer.
I'm just saying, do you not use your personal opinion to determine whether or not the course of your actions is moral or immoral?
My actions are subject to legislation and
So if
direction
the legislation told you
To go out and kill people.
to start killing people.
But the legislation doesn't.
But if it
and
did,
then
would you enact it? Because it's on the paper.
Saying
Would you
but it
enact
doesn't
the
means nothing.
legislation doesn't.
But if it did, would
The
you enact it?
legislation. What ifs? What if the moon
What
was
ifs
made
are
of cheese?
pertinent
It's a
questions
what
when
if.
we're
It's not that far fetched. It's not that far. It's not as
Well,
far fetched as the moon made of cheese.
does-
That's the scary thing.
It doesn't.
But what
Current
if it does?
legislation doesn't.
What if future-
All right, then
future
I won't
legislation?
answer that specific question. But if legislation was passed that I didn't specifically agree with or didn't want to enforce, then I would seriously question my ability to be a police officer. But at the moment, I don't.
I'm very glad to hear that.
At the moment, I don't, because I think the legislation is right and just, and it is voted in by people who we have voted
Yeah,
over the years.
that's my kind of
All
point.
right, the majority have voted.
Yeah, but would you deem it
That's arguable
as a
as well.
rational or moral circumstance for one group of people to inflict what they consider as a group upon another group of people.
So,
Basically, yeah. My point is that if one group of people choose what another group of people can or cannot do, that's not moral, because it's detracting from the freedom of the group of people
it
being governed.
depends what the other group of people wanted to do.
Well, it also depends on what the group of people choose to inflict upon the other people. Would you not agree? My